Hi, I'm meteorologist Chris Tomer. Let's talk mountain weather and ski conditions. And this is the On the Snow, Snow Before You Go report forecast. There's a lot to talk about. Obviously, the big story is the atmospheric river, and that's what's really going to drive this analysis and the forecast over the next 5 days, all the way through the weekend, in fact, because while it is going to be hitting California the hardest, pieces of that will continue to just kind of flow into the interior and really lay down some heavy powder, some heavy snow. Great weekend skiing through Sun Valley up towards Jackson Hole and down, kind of clipping parts of the Wasatch and then even clipping parts of Colorado as well. So we'll just jump into this. I pulled this image this morning from Mammoth. They're just getting hammered there with this atmospheric river. I mean, you can see it. They've got the big front loader out. I mean, it's just getting started, right? This is just the initial wave. It'll snow all the way into Friday morning before tapering off. And I mean, we're going to be talking, they will double the amount of snow that they've had for the entire season out of this one event. Just talking feet of snow. All right, so let's get into the analysis. Here's the radar and the satellite. So there is our low pressure sitting off of the west coast. You've got the rich flow of moisture being escorted in, which is the river of moisture. There's also a cold front in here, which is kind of helping to focus the axis of all this. And also take note that we're seeing, again, little pieces of this break off and move into the interior, into parts of Utah and also Idaho, and eventually that is going to make its way into the Tetons as well, and that low will then come into Colorado for more of a southern track and start to affect Colorado as well, although it's only going to be a piece of the action. Let me take you in just a little bit closer here into California and show you this rich feed of moisture. And again, the initial wave that hit, and it hit hard, brought wind and snow all the way down the crest of the Sierra. And there are blizzard warnings in effect for this entire area all the way into, I believe, Friday morning. But you can see the core of this atmospheric river hitting right there. There were even thunderstorms, I think, in the Bay Area this morning as the whole thing came on shore. Really what you have to do to diagnose this and what will happen in the future is you got to look at the flow. You got to look at the jet stream. And it is going to be impressive all the way into Friday morning. So if we look at sort of the big pattern here over the next, say, 5 to 7 days between basically today and all the way into Sunday, one thing you notice is that, of course, that's where the heaviest totals are going to be of 50 to 100 inches out there, but it will also throw quite a bit of snow up into Sun Valley and into Jackson Hole, into the Tetons right there. I'm forecasting anywhere from 12 to 36 inches, so basically 1 to 3 feet. And again, some of that will also clip Colorado, although much lower totals in the Colorado area. Especially a lot of it's going to be kind of focused western and southwestern Colorado. And then notice with the jet dipping in the northeast so far to the south, you'll get some snow, but it's way south of the heart of New England. Unfortunately, it looks like with that southern position of the jet, I just don't see much other than some very light snows and maybe a clipper up there over the next 5 to 7 days, maybe a larger storm by some point of next week. But really, this is not going to be a big weekend. And take a look at the jet. I know I mentioned this a minute ago, but you see this area of pink or red showing up right here across, and the angle of it is perpendicular to basically the crest of the Sierra. That is a major player in the forecast. It's just taking that moisture and slamming it up against the Sierra. And there's even a low and a cold front involved. And this is kind of a cold low by all respects when you sort of judge it against California and California snowfall. This is kind of a little colder of a low. So we're looking at, when you talk about snow ratios, a little higher, a touch higher than, typically we'd go 8 to 10 to 1. Maybe it's even going to be a little bit higher than that. So that's why we're getting these big snow totals over such a short amount of time as well. And then by the time we get into Saturday, you've got the low sitting basically over Colorado, sweeping through there with some light to moderate snowfall. And then, so that's kind of the weekend pattern. If we look at the future radar, and I'll push this into the future here, we'll take all that moisture and then move it into the interior. Notice it does affect all the way up here in Sun Valley and up towards Jackson Hole. By the time we get into Thursday, it becomes more of a story of the interior. That entire area of precip will then continue to make its way in from California. This is Friday at 5:15 p.m. The main low is on the move, and notice the snow spreading into Utah and then eventually into Colorado by Friday night into Saturday morning, and it'll probably clip Taos as well. You can see some of the blue there, but boys, it's kind of a flash. But you can see that moisture in Colorado by the time we get into Saturday during the day and into the afternoon. Even some leftover snow during the day on Saturday up there in the Tetons around Jackson Hole. I don't see nearly as much snow on the way for Big Sky versus Jackson Hole and even Grand Targhee for that matter. There's going to be some very good skiing into the weekend up there if this flow continues to pan out for that area. By the time we get into Sunday, the whole thing has exited most of the interior, and then we have to focus on the next low pressure, which is already sliding into Seattle and Whistler and Baker and that entire area. We'll start to see the benefits of that pattern with some heavier snows up there. I think you could probably manage a foot to maybe 2 feet up in Baker to Whistler, but much less to the south through the weekend. In fact, here are those numbers as I put this into motion. By the time we get into Thursday morning, you can see the numbers, and we're adding a lot of accumulation through parts of the Sierra, and then we start to see the numbers tick up in the interior through especially the Tetons over to Sun Valley, but the Wasatch will start to see some accumulation as well. There's Friday morning. The numbers by Saturday are much more impressive across Jackson Hole. Look at Sun Valley, great skiing right there. In Colorado, starting to see those numbers tick up through southwest and western Colorado, Wolf Creek over the top of Silverton, up at a Crested Butte, Aspen Snowmass. I'd watch those areas for good weekend skiing. And by the time we get into Sunday morning, we have added just a little bit, but by that point, the big storm, the atmospheric river, even the pieces have exited most of the interior, and then we'll watch for the next storm coming into the Pacific Northwest. So, again, overall, I know I've sort of been advertising these totals, but here's what we've got remaining by Friday morning, another 40, 50, 60, 70 inches up there through parts of Heavenly, Sierra, and Kirkwood. What you don't see on the map here is Mammoth. Mammoth, I think, in my opinion, will end up with probably the most sheer snowfall out of this atmospheric river event. And I know I touched on this just briefly, but up in the northeast, talking about New England by Sunday night, again, it's sort of a compilation or accumulation of just some very light snows sliding through and probably a clipper, but the numbers up here through Sunday River and Stowe and Jay Peak, Sugar Bush just are not that big, unfortunately. I think things with the big trough off the west coast and the atmospheric river off the west coast, that's really the anchor for where most of the weather is going to be happening. Again, thank you for tuning in here. Always appreciate it. This is the On the Snow Report. Have a great weekend and take care.